To introduce ekphrasis, an ekphrastic is a vivid description of a theme or a work of art, and writers often reflect on the art or offer their own interpretation of the piece while expanding the narrative. It can also include how the speaker is affected by the piece of art they're commenting on. Originally, ekphrastics were pieces of writing that had vivid description. For example, Homer's The Iliad is an example of an old ekphrastic. To write an ekphrastic, finding a piece of art is the first step. Observe the piece before adding a separate interpretation or adding to it.
Hi guys, I'm Nabika and I'm going to be telling you guys about an example of an ekphrastic poetry. So here you see a bunch of poems from the artwork collection of Claude Monet that is named as Water Lilies. He painted this between like a certain period between the late 1890s till 1919 to be exact, I think. And there are more than like hundreds of paintings based in this collection. So in this Monet focuses on the like the garden of his like home in France. This the painting basically shows the three main elements. This is the Japanese bridge, the pond, and the lilies that are present in the pond. He paints them in different like settings and scenarios. For example, some of the paintings are based during the daytime where there's lots of sunlight shining on the pond. Other times the atmosphere is a bit more gloomy and it's based when the sun is setting in the afternoon, and there are different variations, but the main objects of the painting remain the same. As you can see, the style of Monet here is impressionist style, and so the brushstrokes are blending into one another. They're not as defined, rather they're like amalgamating into one another. As you can see, like the water and the atmosphere and the light that is shining, that is painted by Monet, like it's all blending into one another. So yeah. So now we're going to be presenting the piece, the written piece that inspired by these artworks. So yeah, this poem is written by Robert Hayden and it's by the same name. It's named as Monet's Water Lilies. So I'll first be reading out the poem and then I'll give you guys the background of the poem. So today, as the news from Selma and Saigon poisons the air like fallout, I come again to see the serene, great picture that I love. Here, space and time exist in light. The eye, like the eye of faith, believes. The seen, the known, dissolve in iridescence, become elusive flesh of light. That was not, was, forever is. O light beheld as through refracting tears. Here is the aura of that world each of us has lost. Here is the shadow of its joy. So basically, in the beginning, you can see the setting and the background of the poem. This poem is basically set after World War II, and since and focuses a lot on the social commentaries of war and the troubles that are faced afterwards as well. So Robert here mentions the news from Selma and Saigon. So this basically means like he was hearing a lot of depressing news through the media outlets, and it presented a very like brutal view of the world. So that was very disheartening for him. But as he's narrating in the poem, like when he needs to like have some respite, to have some comfort, he basically comes to view the series of Water Lilies by Monet, and that gives him like comfort. So in the beginning he's explaining about the setting and the background of the poem, and then he's adding his own like personal interpretation into it as well. So you'll see the color coordination by the different aspects. So like the blue represents the setting and the background, the pink represents his personal interpretation, and then the orange color is a blend of both. So basically, in the second stanza, he mentions here space and time exist in light, the eye, like the eye of faith, believes. So basically, he's telling like his faith got lost because of the brutality of the cruelty he sees in the world. But when he like sees the paintings, he sees like the light in them that exists now because of like the Monet's painting, and so like it helps to like refresh his faith as well. And he and in the like latter half he is explaining about the description and the moods of the painting as well. So by words like iridescence, elusive flash of light, it gives a reference to the original painting as well. And then in the final stanza, we see that he is evoking both a sense of melancholy and transcendence in the speaker's case. So, for example, we see a transient nature of light, of water, and of the ripples in the painting. So here we see the same thing, and it also like could possibly allude to the deterioration of Monet's eyesight in the later half of like the painting of the series, the eyesight of Monet's worsened, due to which his like brushstrokes also became a lot more forensic, a lot more dreamlike. And you could see like the author, the narrators also like referencing that as well. And also he's juxtaposing the brutality and the cruelty of the world with the transient impermanence but beautiful and serene nature of the poem. So at the right corner, I've mentioned some of the explanation, and this basically explains what I've said. So Haydn's poems, like Monet's Water Lilies, demonstrates how art may provide a respite from chaos. The poem's phrasing reflects Monet's depiction of light and color mixing together as reality melts into something softer and more fluid. Monet's blues and shifting tones create a tranquil setting, while Haydn's words transport us to a world with blurred edges, akin to Monet's brushstrokes in the collection. So basically, this poem also served as a motivation and respite to the general public as well, because they were going through the same emotions of sadness, of hopelessness, like Robert. So through the poem and through his own piece, Robert is trying to motivate and uplift the general audience as well. There's a sense of loss and beauty, as if looking at something familiar but just out of grasp. In the end, both the paintings and the poems showcase how art inspires us, even amidst the turbulence of life.
All right, now I'll talk about this painting, Mountain Stream by John Singer Sargent, and I'd like to first introduce this painting first before we head on to the ekphrastic. So, firstly, there's this center of focus, which is the man on the top right corner. He's currently like basking next to the river, and you can see that all of the brushstrokes are extremely much more rougher and impressionistic in its style, and this could possibly depict, for example, how like focused this painting is more on like the like viewer and the painter's experience and perspective of, like, for example, the waves just brushing by, and like not like focusing on, for example, the objective like image or photo of the river and the person next to it as a whole. So I think that this painting is a very focused sort of like image of the person's experience towards this man next to a river. So we can get on to the poem now. So similarly to what the painting has like told us about like the experience and the very muddled like memory of the person by the stream, I think that this phrases is separated into three sections which are balanced between, for example, the person's experience related and elaborated off of the painting itself. For example, those highlighted on if with blue, which show like the elaboration of the author's feelings with the poem and with the painting, and the experiences they gained from the painting itself. And also the orange also reflects how the painting is directly expositioned into the poem. So for like further analysis, I'll read the poem for you right now. My Brother as Anonymous Bather by Kyoko Reedy. The spring after my brother admitted he was an addict, we spent a week at the lower river. The rush of snow melt to wash clean our winter wants, our fresh guilt. One morning I discovered him gone, the rented cabin empty except for the shadow of panic tailing me like a loyal dog. I stumbled down to the river, the high water roaring loud as a bad engine. And there he was, crouched like Sargent's anonymous bather, naked and thrilled by cold, a streak of flesh in the dark stones, too close to the great tumble of white water. His body possessed the lithe assurance of a man comfortable at a catastrophe's cusp. He leaned forward, peering into a pool cut through by sunlight, a crawdad picking its way over a heap of pebbles at the bottom. The pool hollowed by the river's will alone, the surface rippled from the spray churning angrily just feet away. And my little brother, the water's reflection scattering his face, missed a tangle of hair holding the sun in a chaotic halo, always leaning closer. So overall, I think that this poem interprets anachrosis as a further elaboration and storyline of a painting, as seen with how the man in the painting was given an identity through the brother, and it mixes between the person's own experience, as seen with the impressionist style, with with their own experiences and the painting's truth itself through the brushstrokes in general. So I think that this poem mixes together both experience and objectivity in its writing. So this could be utilized in next praxis.
Okay, so now you guys have seen some examples of ekphrastic poems based on art pieces. So now we're going to give you guys some art pieces that we think would be great for ekphrastic poetry. They have some themes and motifs that we think could be very effective when creating an ekphrastic poem. The first piece is Nighthawks by Edward Hopper from 1942. So Hopper's Nighthawks is an oil painting that depicts a deserted avenue in Greenwich Village, Manhattan. So as you can see, the focal point is a man sitting alone in a gray top hat and a gray suit, staring down at what we can only assume is an alcoholic beverage, since this appears to be a bar. Even though we can only see the man's back, the coldness of the light makes us project a melancholy expression onto his face, right? Like we see kind of that shadowy element to the painting that makes the mood, even though the inside of the bar is light, feel sort of kind of fleeting and sad and kind of solitary. And the man's shadowy figure evokes an air of oppressive solitude. So we can see that he's sitting alone, and kind of the brushstrokes and shadow elements of the painting kind of convey the isolated emotions that this man may be feeling from the other patrons in the bar that are sitting completely separately from him. And even though Edward Hopper did not intend originally to paint a lonely scene, unconsciously probably he said, I was painting the loneliness of a big city. So I think some of the motifs or some of the elements of solitude and loneliness in this painting could be great for an ekphrastic piece, since it's sort of a universal feeling, and also maybe some incorporation of city elements could be a nice addition to an ekphrastic poem for this piece. So I think this piece is a great example of how to create a poem based on some of the images that are present in visual art.
Right. The next piece is In Tips in the Morning by Claude Monet, and this painting really highlights his impressionist style as he paints a French city. And he spent January to April of 1888 in Antibes writing to his future wife, how beautiful it is to be here, but how difficult to paint. I can see what I want to do quite clearly, but I'm not there yet. It's so clear and pure in its pinks and blues that the slightest misjudged stroke looks like a smear of dirt. And after this, he painted this as well as a few other paintings in the same city. And I think something to note here is the very like nature-filled landscape of this, but in the background, there's also a city, but Monet doesn't really focus on that and instead focuses on the scenery of where he's sitting from. And it looks to be around sunrise. So I think something like that could be very easily commented on.
I'll be introducing The Goldfinch by Carol Fabritius. And I think that this painting has potential because for an ekphrasis because of its unique spin on the object, a goldfinch, in respective to the timeline of its like symbolic meaning in a conventional sense. Because on a technical level, it uses a very elusive and illusion like level of painting a goldfinch, and I think that this could be a very poetic meaning offer a very poetic meaning towards your writing in general, because of its ability to be melded in a myriad of ways, similar to how we could write a poem in like so many different different perceptions and layers. And contextually, I think that what really makes this painting stick out for an ekphrasis is how symbolically, while a goldfinch is conventionally seen as like a symbol of innocence or resourcefulness and love, the painter intentionally skews away from this idea and makes it rather trapped and confined to its own cage with a chain to its like legs. So I think that this could be a great this juxtaposition between two opposite meanings could contribute to a rather like ambitious poem which juxtaposes between freedom and loss and the lack thereof to create for an ekphrasis to form. So I think that this poem could do very well in depicting a sort of loss of grief or loss of freedom in a way.
Yeah, so I chose The Persistence of Memory by Salvador Dali for as an example for for you guys to write an acrostic on. So basically, this piece has a lot of unique elements that we have not seen earlier. Partly because of his genre, it's a surrealist painting, and this like painting form is relatively new and modern compared to the rest of the paintings. So in general, like surrealist paintings, we see like dreamlike, abstract, and subconscious imagery present, which is also like present in this painting as well. So basically, this is inspired by Dali's childhood home. He was sitting in his studio in his like childhood home, and he saw like Amber Bay cheese melting in the sun. So from this, he got an inspiration of painting this. He basically utilized a method known as paranoid critical method, and in this basically tapped into his subconscious mind, and he quote unquote he experienced like hallucinations through which like he painted this. So in the painting itself we can see like there are melting clocks, and there's a disfigured like object in the middle of the poem, and the landscape itself is like very brazen, and there's a mix of yellows and like very bland like colors that are used in the painting. So like if we were to write a piece based on this painting, we can have a lot of room to experiment in that piece, because the painting itself like calls for a lot of versatile interpretations. So by the melting of clocks, you could take it as many different kind of symbols, some of which can be like the relativity of time as inspired by Einstein's theory, and also like how time flows differently for everyone, or how as we're moving forward time is deteriorating for every one of us. And as we inspect closer into different sections of the painting, we find like a lot to expand upon. For example, on the like red section there are a bunch of ants, so you could take that as the symbol of decay as well. And in the center you see like this bird like creature that's fallen. Some people say that it represents the painter himself. You could also take in different ways as well. So, by writing a piece inspired by this poem, you can tackle on a lot of different subjects, and you can include many different kind of motifs and themes in it. So, a fun fact about this painting is that it's smaller than a standard size of like paper, but still, like it's very widely celebrated and is regarded as the face of surrealism today.
Okay, so now is the point in the workshop where we're all going to write our own acrostic poems. So we're going to use the doc that Nabiha sent to the chat early in the workshop as kind of a guide for writing our acrostic poems. So we recommend that you use one of the four pieces that we just presented as examples of art pieces you can use to write your acrostic poems with, just so that at the end, we might have some overlap between pieces, and it'd be cool to kind of compare and contrast your guys' interpretations of the art pieces, because it is a very individual process, and it's very cool to see how you guys would interpret some of these art pieces. But by all means, if you have another art piece that you are really inspired by, you can use that as well to write your acrostic poem. So I'm going to stop sharing now just so that I can access the doc myself. But we'll come back in 10 minutes, and hopefully you guys will just have something written down. It doesn't have to be a fully complete acrostic poem, but it'll be cool to see kind of what you guys come up with. So I'm going to set a timer for 10 minutes. We're going to come back, hopefully with a few lines written down based on some of the art pieces that Nabiha pasted in the chat. Okay, so that was that was 10 minutes. Um, so I wanted to know if anyone has anything to share that they experimented with over these last 10 minutes or any lines that they wrote that stood out to them. Just anything at all that you guys would like to share in terms of even just your process in the last 10 minutes, kind of interpreting an art piece and finding sort of the elements that you want to use in your poetry. I can go. So I used Nighthawks by Edward Hopper, if you guys are following along on the doc, and I think I kind of interpreted the acrostic like a a description of the art piece with like a little more zest. So it was like the art piece, but it had sort of the internal monologue of the lonely man in the bar. So if you'd like to follow along with the art piece and kind of see what I used in terms of my poem, that would be cool. So I just titled it Nighthawks by Edward Hopper. I didn't come up with an original title. Um, it is comical. I have seen that couple short of 1,000 times before, but have never said hello. This city knows everyone's secrets, but never bothers to share them with me. So here I am, knuckles against wooden countertop, balancing a shot glass between my knees, trying to look busy. Do you think they've noticed me too? The bartender never asks me what I want. The bartender never asks me what I want. I never make eye contact. Either way, I leave empty-handed. I play the victim and walk alone in darkness. So that's what I have in terms of Nighthawks. I kind of used some of the loneliness elements and sort of described kind of his perspective in this bar in Greenwich Village. Does anyone else have any poems that they'd like to share, or just even like what did you do? Yeah, Sienna.
Hi there. One second, I'm on my phone right now. It's difficult to do technology, but I use the, what was it called? Mountain Stream by John Singer Sargent, and I thought it looked a little bit like that one scene from, I read a book called The Song of Achilles,
Hmm.
and I don't know if you know that one, but there's a scene where Patroclus and Achilles are, with, Chiron,
Hmm.
up in his like mountain area, and every day they go to play near the stream. So I thought it looked a little bit like that, and I kind of wrote it from one of the two's perspective. Um, is it okay if I read it?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I titled it of Mountain Streams and Saints. I delicately track through the rugged riverbed, hoping not to disturb the quiet ecstasy of the forest floor. The sun glides along your shoulder blades as you lift the water from its resting place to gill your arms in dewy droplets. The rushing of the stream is complemented by your soft groans while you work out the knots in your neck. I am not God, but I deign to say you stain this water holy. I'm no faithful patron, but I dare say you rival the deities for their otherworldly beauty. Wrought between sticks and stones, you were birthed in a heat gone cold. Turn your head back to me and smile solemnly, for I regrettably disrupted your first peace in months. That's all.
Oh my goodness. First of all, I love Song of Achilles. That book is so good. And I know exactly what you're talking about. The stream does remind me of Song of Achilles for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was awesome. I really like it was so kind of evocative and visceral, even though it was, you wrote that in 10 minutes and truly just an awesome piece. I saw Nabiha, you were smiling. Did you have anything to say about the poem?
Yeah, like when she described the scene from the Song of Achilles, I was like, yeah, it didn't click before, but now I can definitely see it. And I love the way you like recited the poem as well. And I was just connected in my mind to the like the scene itself. So everything was beautiful. Like the words that you used, the way you connotated them together. That was so good.
Um, and
Thank
then
you so much.
does anyone else have any other poems or processes that they'd like to share? Yes. Go ahead, Madeline or Madeline.
Madeline. Hi. So I also did Nighthawks. I I had a hard time kind of interpreting the poem because I felt like there was so many different perspectives you could kind of go with it, because each person definitely has their own story, kind of like how you leaned in with the guy sitting by himself. I honestly didn't get very far. I just kind of described the scenery first. A glass box hums in a neon hush, its own world among the night. You can't help but watch the peculiar sight. Four people completely untethered. No past nor future beyond this glow, yet they all are connected, though. I don't write much poetry. I am much more of a short story writer, but that piece is very pretty. I really liked it.
Yeah, wow, that's awesome. I really see it's nice when two people use the same art piece. Yeah, I think something that's really stood out about that piece, like you said, was like everyone has a different perspective. Like in an ekphrastic, you could write from the perspective of like so many different people. Like there's like the couple, the man, the bartender person, people. I could even see someone writing from like outside perspective looking into the bar. Like I think there's a lot of things that you could explore with that piece. So thank you so much for sharing. Before we go, does anyone else have anything that they'd like to share in terms of their piece or process? No? Okay. Thank you guys so much for coming today. I'm gonna reshare the slideshow really quickly, just because I have one more brief thing to say before we go. So let's see. Let me just put it in present mode. Awesome. Okay. So the thing that I wanted to say is that Asterlit accepts themed art and photography submissions. So right now our subs are closed. Our reprise submissions just recently closed. But when our next issue opens up, we will be accepting art and photography submissions. The art submissions are themed, which means that they need to follow the theme that we have provided for each issue. So that means, like, for example, last issue, Reprise, people were doing sort of cyclical looking art pieces, maybe some layering, some different kinds of techniques that emulate Reprise. And then there's an artist statement that kind of explains the connection between your art piece and the theme, or anything else that you'd like to add about your piece. And it's a really cool addition that we added pretty recently to Asterlit to kind of show that we are an interdisciplinary magazine, and we value different kinds of art, whether that be visual, literary, or otherwise. We've also accepted music submissions in the past, so we're really invested in creating an interdisciplinary magazine. So yeah, definitely if you guys are artists, submit art to Asterlit. If you guys want to submit your ekphrastics to Asterlit, we'd love to see them next issue. It'd be awesome to kind of see where you guys go with them. Because yeah, it's ekphrastic poetry is something we really admire and value, and we'd love to kind of have more ekphrastic submissions to Astrolab potentially. Yeah, so thank you guys so much for coming. Really appreciate the engagement in writing the poems. That's really important. That it's really awesome that you guys were able to come up with such amazing pieces. So thank you so much. I'm gonna stop recording now.